I'm joined today with Anna Brees, an ex-ITV and BBC reporter presenter with over 96,000 followers on Twitter, and who now provides training on new media broadcast skills and is the author of the book Making the News, and also a Regional Awards and Zokit Innovation Award winner for 2018. So a big thank you for taking the time to talk to me, Anna.
You're welcome.
I first of all wanted to ask how it all started for you in the journalism world. How did you get into it?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. So I left Lampeter University with a theology and anthropology degree.
Oh, wow.
And it was in 1998. And my mum said there aren't any jobs at the moment in the UK. My dad was a teacher in Guernsey in the Channel Islands. And I was able to, as long as I lived with them, I was able to work in the Channel Islands where there were loads of jobs. And I ended up working at Rothschild's Bank for 2 years in an admin role, and I hated it. I can't tell you how much I hated it.
Yeah.
I didn't like living in Guernsey. It was too small. After 6 months, the novelty had worn off. And I was so frustrated. Well, I really didn't enjoy it at all. And I thought, right, okay, Anna, you're 22 or something. You've got to think here. What do you really want to do? If you were going to do a career, what would you choose?
Yeah.
And my uncle was Tony, was a journalist at the Citizen newspaper in Gloucester. He was a sub-editor. He said, do not become a journalist. He said, no, there's no money in it. There's no job security. There's no safety. Don't do it. But I thought, I want to meet people. And also there was definitely a little bit of the ego there because I was bullied badly at school, and I probably wanted that recognition of the byline and to be a person, to have a name. So I ended up doing, I managed to get a job at the Guernsey Press just based on a couple of days work experience, because in the Channel Islands, back then, you didn't need any professional qualifications to become a journalist. You just became a journalist for the Guernsey Press. So I was a reporter. I was on 16 grand a year. And I was on 14 grand a year, I think, 14 or 16,000 pounds a year. And I was a journalist for the Guernsey Press. But again, it was the Channel Islands. It was nice people, but no, it wasn't for me. I ended up wanting to get back to the UK, so I needed to do some kind of professional qualification. I went to Highbury College. I was going to do the newspaper course, which was a 3-month intensive course with shorthand and everything. So this was a kind of like a post-grad, because I'd already got the degree in anthropology and theology. So I then I ended up doing the broadcast course instead, which was 9 months, because I found that I was struggling a little bit with writing because I'm mildly dyslexic. And I felt that TV and radio was probably better suited to me.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I was there with, for example, Andrea Benfield. I think she's not called Andrea Benfield anymore, but she's the main news anchor now for ITV Wales. And lots of people went into radio and corporate communications, and that was back in 2001 where I did my course. And then after that, I got a job at ITV in the Channel Islands. And that was a really interesting period of my life because I was desperate to get back to the UK. They call it the mainland. I'm from Gloucestershire, but there was just, it was just, I wasn't very confident. I had really bad spots then as well. And I remember I was going for these jobs at the BBC. They were all regional reporting and presenting jobs at ITV, BBC. And I was just getting maybe to the last 2, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And in the end, I had like 11 job applications, and I didn't get anywhere. And I just thought, Anna, you've got to leave the Channel Islands. I was miserable. So in the end, I just said, I'm going to go.
Yeah, I was going to
gave up my job, and I ended up being on an employment benefit for a few months, and I just started doing work experience for ITV Oxford, and I started getting some really good stories, and they could see I had talent. I did my first live, and it went from a 3-month, it went from like a bit of work experience to a 3-month contract. But it was difficult to get it. It was difficult to get into TV, and I was with Oxford and Cambridge graduates, and lots of privately educated. ITV Oxford then in Abingdon was shut down, and we all thought we were going to lose our jobs, but I ended up being headhunted, and I ended up with the main presenter jobs at ITV in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Incredible. Moved to ITV Birmingham, one of the main presenters, and ITV kept getting rid of their regional stations, and I thought they should have done that because it was a really good, I think they regret that now because they had a great connection with the, so for example, Wesley ITV in Oxford, he had been on this TV for such a long time. He built up a relationship with the community of trust and the brand of ITV. So even though they weren't making money from ITV Regional News, it was a powerful brand because the public really trusted Wes and all the other presenters at ITV in Abingdon. They just got rid of the whole region, and then they were going to merge West and East Midlands.
Oh yeah.
So again, I was facing my job, losing my job. One of them, there were 10 presenters, they were going down to 3 presenters. So I thought, I got to get out of here really, because what's the likelihood of me getting one of these jobs with 2 big, massive ITV regions merging into 3 presenters? So I managed to get a job at the BBC as a presenter. And everyone was like, oh my God, everyone went for that job because everyone was about to lose their jobs. Everyone wanted to get that job at the BBC, the South Today. And again, I was one of the main presenters at BBC South Today. I didn't realise I was pregnant at the time. And that was in 2009. I ended up having my eldest son, who's now 12. And when he came along, there was a part of me that was so proud of the sacrifices I'd made and the commitment I'd made to that career and how I wanted it to continue. But at the same time, that little boy is my whole world. Children are my whole world. And that came first. And I was very lucky to be able to, you know, I didn't have as much money, you know, I couldn't, you know, I was earning good money at ITV and BBC. But then I put the kids first. I did go back briefly to BBC Wales. I worked for a program called BBC X-Ray just for a couple of months. They offered me a full-time job, but again, my second child was on the way, and they needed me. They were little. They really, really needed me. Then I've ended up working for the National Union of Journalists, Training Wales, doing admin, and it was just kind of a part-time job. And I was very quietly getting on with life, very happy. Not earning a lot of money, but it was an easy job, really, really easy admin job for the NUJ. And then the NUJ, we were never sure if the subsidy from the Welsh Government would continue. So I never thought I wasn't sure if the job with the NUJ was going to continue. So I started to look at doing courses. And we were running something called How to Film and Edit on an iPhone. And this was back in when the iPhone 4 was around. And it was just the demand for this course, How to Shoot and Edit on an iPhone. It's a 2-day course. The demand was incredible. I had a TV background, and I saw Dan Mason, who was a former editor for one of the main Birmingham papers, used to take the course, and he was using iMovie. And I thought it was a fantastic course, and Dan is incredible. And those courses still exist. If anyone lives in, near Cardiff, they run those courses on a regular basis with the NUJ, and I really do recommend you pop along. And they're not expensive either. If you're an NUJ member, they're like 35 quid. If you're not an NUJ member, they're 70 quid. And you learn how to film and edit on an iPhone. But I took that training, used a different editing app called KineMaster. I use an AutoCue app. I talk about subtitles, how to add your own branding, the kind of shots you need. And when you work at ITV, you have to do it all. You're a one-man band. Yeah. So I'm able to pass on those skills. When I was at the BBC, they couldn't believe that I could edit because they didn't do that. ITV, you have to do everything. Yeah. The BBC, the BBC were in a more privileged position where they had craft editors and cameramen, and then I'll be honest with you, when I went to work for BBC X-Ray, 2 presenters, they didn't do anything but just present. So you'd do, as a producer, you'd do all the research, you'd write all the questions, and you'd give them the questions, and you'd give them the script. Even there was a reporter, and they did very little. And they were just like actors. I'm sorry to say, but they just literally would read the questions. They might change it a little bit and do a little pre-chat. But generally, you weren't a presenter, producer, reporter, and I'd got those skills. So then I ended up selling the course, going all around the country with big corporate clients, teaching this 2-day course on how to take control of the media with your mobile, grow your profile on social media. And then COVID came along. And then child sexual abuse victims came along, and then whistleblowers came along. And then my values were challenged, and my principles, again, of putting children first kicked in. And I saw the suffering, particularly among children. And I had to reach out and help people like Us for Them, a fantastic group who were trying to get a message on This Morning. So I know lots of people at ITV This Morning I used to work with. They would say they would talk to them when the lockdown happened and children were out of school and suffering, and then they just drop them. And I had to come in, I think, and I felt I had to come in and help as a journalist again. And I love training. I love talking to students. I love to, if I can, give some direction and inspiration.
Yeah.
But I had to come back and help, because this has been a very, very long, dark period, I think, for journalism. And it's not looking very bright at the moment, but hopefully people like you can bring back what we need in journalism. I'd like to know a little bit more about your views on whether journalists are doing their job properly, listening to the public, holding power to account, representing all voices, taking the time to investigate stories, listen to whistleblowers, etc., or are they just regurgitating press releases?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I think a big thing for me that I see online is that the whole kind of mental health thing, and how like there's still publications that are, publicizing, oh, the best and the worst dressed, and you're like, why? How is that still allowed? Like shaming people and like taking pictures of them at uncomfortable angles when obviously they're not going to look their best, and they're still allowed to publicize it. Or even, with the football, someone had a heart attack, I think it was, and they're filming it. Like, it's just not like humane. It's not. I don't think, as a journalist, you're obviously supposed to be unbiased and kind of show the best sort of side. It's not something that I feel that's like, it's not.
Well, what is a journalist? We need to ask the question, what is a journalist? Because we all have the means to publish and film and publish. I think it comes down to trust and content. So, you, like you say, ethically, would you film someone who collapsed, or a child, or you are all responsible for what you film and what you share. Journalists have more reach, but then I have more reach now than I ever had as a regional TV presenter. And I've still watch regional news, and I just think it's so old-fashioned. It was when we had 3, 4 channels, 5 channels, you had to have your news in a half-hour segment. But the younger generations now are consuming news, aren't they? In so many other different ways while they're mobile. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm 20.
And why did you get into journalism? What do you hope to achieve in your career?
I think I like chatting to people, like you said as well. I like getting to know people and things. But I think and that kind of storytelling. And I think I quite like to kind of make a change in things that I've seen growing up in the media that I've maybe felt insecure about. I'd want to help people who are feeling the same as me, or have been through the same things as me, to be able to have a voice to say, no, it's normal to feel like this, or it's normal to look like this, or have certain things, and be able to be a voice for, like a lot of people do nowadays, and even you with your Brees Media, kind of being a voice for people that you think, oh, that is normal to be like that. And I think that's why I wanted to get into it more, because I like writing and chatting and things, so being able to put that down somewhere and people to be able to consume it and think, oh yeah, I didn't think of it like that, or I didn't see it that way, because I'm quite opinionated as well. My mum and that always say, oh God, there are no opinions, but being able, like, for people to read it and see it from a different perspective that they might not have thought of, I think's quite cool.
If you change the media, you change society. But how would you feel about being your own brand, i.e. you as an individual, or would you work for a media organization? And who would you work for? And do you think, a lot of journalists might think it would be fantastic to get a job at the BBC, for example, but I personally wouldn't work for them. So would you work your own brand as a content creator, as an individual influencer, or would you attach yourself to another media brand?
It's funny because my mum went to a spiritualist quite a few years ago now, and they were talking, because I've got another sister, she's 18 months older, and they were talking about us both, and they were saying my sister's quite into languages and things, and they were saying, oh, she one of them's going to be abroad and things like that, so we're like, oh, that's my sister. And they're like, the other one isn't being told what to do, like she's going to have to be her own manager, like she's not being told what to do by people. And that's so me, like I'm quite, like I said, opinionated, quite strong-minded. But I don't know, I think I haven't really thought much into it, because obviously I feel like it's hard to get into these days, but like you said, like it's quite easy to kind of make, not easy, but it's you can just make your own website and things, and I can be my own
Well,
make my
listen,
own brand.
I love what you've just said about, you won't be told what to do. I just couldn't imagine now working in a newsroom. But,
Yeah.
let me ask you the question. You're working on a weekend and there's a massive protest. You're in London, a massive protest. I don't know. It looks like there's 100,000, 200,000 people outside. You work at the BBC, they're shouting, shame on you, shame on you. Or they've gone all the way down, massive big protest throughout central London. And you get lots of calls from the public. Are you going to come and report on this? And you get told by your boss, no, you're not, mustn't touch that. We don't want you to report on that. We've got to be pro-government agenda. We don't want to hear from the people. Or another scenario, you get a call from someone who's a whistleblower. It's going to take a bit of time to look into the story. And then your editor, your boss says, no, we haven't got time for that. You've got to produce content far more quickly. That's not our agenda today. You've got to go and do this piece on some Marks and Spencer's Christmas campaign. We're not interested in that story. And that was very difficult for me in the newsrooms when we were getting these stories of pain from the public and there was no more interest in covering them. So what would you do in that situation? Because I now would say, sod this, I can do a better job. Bye.
Yeah, because I think it's hard, because I think as I'm sort of starting out in the journalism world, I think I'd want to be, it depends kind of what job it is, because I think I'd want to stick up for myself, like my friends will know, like if there's anything that's not fair, I'll be the first one to say, no, I'm not having that, like you're doing the same as me, or we're all going to be the same, like let's make it fair. But I think, I don't know, I guess it's how passionate I feel about it. So I'd want to probably speak up and say, no, hang on a minute, this is far more important than an M&S advert. But I guess I obviously haven't been in a newsroom and things, but the nature that I've been told about the newsroom.
Well, they're paying you, aren't they? They're paying you.
Exactly, yeah.
You obviously want to be a part of a team. Working in a team is fantastic, and learning from mentors and other people that are older, and learning the skills that you need to learn, to do that kind of career. I completely understand that it's a really difficult situation, but what I think a lot of journalists now should be deeply embarrassed and ashamed of themselves. And I think the whole the whole industry has been brought into question of what its relevance is, what its power really truly is, other than, you go into communications. If you were just going to pump out corporate or government line, you don't go into journalism. Journalism's about holding power to account and investigating things. And I was horrified right from the beginning. April, May 2020, Professor Robert N just came to me saying the BBC aren't balanced. He worked at Imperial, said that Neil Ferguson's modelling report wasn't balanced. And then they just kept coming. Barrister Francis Saul, Simon Dolan, the entrepreneur, Dr. Rennie Hundekamp, Dr. Rick O'Shea, a former head of health analysis at the ONS, former PHW, Public Health Wales media spokesperson, was head of diseases, saying lockdowns don't work. They weren't really being heard. There was no debate, no balance, there was no counter narrative. And it's got worse and worse and worse. And if I was a mainstream media journalist now, and some of my old colleagues that I know, I could reel off all their names: Becky Johnson, Sarah J. Mee, Alistair Bunkle, Matt Brindley, Katie Ricketts. There's loads of them. Correct, Catshrew. They must be feeling a bit uncomfortable. I think they should be feeling uncomfortable because they've contributed to this situation where, well, they work for organisations that other people trust in the same way as they used to. Sue Cook used to work for the BBC. I did an interview with her. She said, I've turned off BBC Radio 4 for the first time in 20 years. But I would say, if you look at the media organisation, it's very difficult being a journalist. It's very difficult choosing the stories that you need, you think you can prioritise. So you have to look at your values. If your values are children first, then that would motivate your running order. So you put your values first, then your running order. And then you do have to make hard calls and judgments. So I have a lot of people in the past have called me with their stories. And they're like, well, this is going to take me my time, months and months. And at the end of it, I don't think I'm going to get this to be of a standard where it could be published, because you need a right of reply, you need multiple sources to confirm. And it's a lot of time. And then it disappoints people. Not every story of pain can be published. But the journalism thing, I had issues before with the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. They weren't really covering that, and the horrific abuse that had happened to children. And because of COVID, it has all come out, but it's not really been a main topic of discussion. We're more interested, don't we, like you say, in celebrity crap
Yeah.
than protecting our children.
Yeah, you just think sometimes there's more important things to report on than what J-Lo's wearing. Obviously, sometimes it is nice to break it up, but what Katie Price is doing, in Sainsbury's or something. I was just going to ask you actually, just going back to the BBC and ITV, what was the kind of best and worst, what you found in the job, your best and worst of it?
Oh gosh, the best. It was having a laugh with the cameramen. It was the editors. Oh, everyone off camera was brilliant. They were really good fun. We had a laugh, and I love working with other people, and I've missed that.
Yeah.
I've still got friends. The cameramen were fun, and the editors, the picture editors, and the idiot bosses, who all just seem to have some kind of narcissistic personality disorder. I used to smirk about, and I still do now. The best thing was the laugh, especially IT Central in Oxford. What a laugh. Lovely people. But yeah, the people on screen were a bit weird, but they were all right. And that was the best bit. What was the worst bit? I didn't, you know what? This was before social media came along, so I didn't really feel that bad. There wasn't any worse, but it was fun. It wasn't like I thought, oh, there's this awful story we're not covering, because back in those days, we didn't really have social media. So we used to do the front page of the newspaper would be our lead story. And the newspapers were good. People would say, I'm going to call the local paper, and the stories would come to us.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the worst bit. What was the worst bit? I didn't like the waste of the BBC. There were a lot of people weren't really doing a job, and they were getting paid. That was a bit annoying, because I knew people were paying their license fee. Probably
what was the kind of moment that you realised you didn't want to go back to, like, them kind of organisations?
It was when I realised we could all do it. So it just felt like I could better use my skills to empower and educate and enable all voices to be heard, represent all voices instead of just a few. So, bumping into a BBC Wales Today reporter who was filming and editing a court report on his iPhone X. We can all do it, yeah? I did a 2-day course, show people how to do it.
Yeah.
I had voiceover, how to do the interviews, I had to clip them up, how to be balanced, get a right reply, how to write a good text link. It was simply a case of, I feel more proud passing on my skills, and I actually make a lot more money, and I'm a lot more free.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to read an autocue anymore either. I went in presenting, and you weren't doing a lot of journalism and presenting. You might do. You'd cut down the overnights. You do the overnights, maybe the overnights, write the bulletins for the next day, and you're basically just, unless there was an embargo, it wasn't the news.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of journalism involved in the TV presenting job I had, but a lot more of it is in the book, actually, Making the News 2018. And I tell you what, I started to write another book called Making the News 2019, and I couldn't. I got too upset. It was all about the different people I'd met to do with child abuse, and in particular the Hope to Jersey Children's Home story. And there was different people and individuals who had not been heard. Child abuse survivors, policemen, professional social workers, Lenny Harper, who was Deputy Chief of Police in Jersey, and the cover up there. And it just made me sad, because I just thought we've ignored these stories. And then at the point of injustice, at the point when you can do something and speak out, do the right thing, you've got to do it at that point, and we didn't. And now it's just got worse and worse and worse, because this, for me, this COVID situation is a complete disaster, because it is a really challenging one. The vaccination, or whether COVID, there's suffering, I think I can see. But what's really upsetting is, for example, Charlotte Wright's husband, Dr. Stephen Wright, died from the AstraZeneca vaccine. She really wanted to do an interview, and we contacted ITV. And I know people at ITV, and they gave me the details, and they just didn't even respond. I did the interview, and they've ignored the pain. They've ignored a big part and a section of the society. And I'll never get that trust back. I think people have really suffered, and they just wanted to be heard. They just wanted the counter narrative and the debate, and it wasn't happening. And so many professional people who really needed a good media organisation to rely upon and feel that they've let them down, really have.
Why do you think it is that they're ignoring these stories, or do you think it's down to like a certain person
Money.
higher up? Oh.
It's money. And I feel this now. So luckily I've got an income on Patreon, but I had somebody give me money. And then I was like saying what they were saying to me, well, I want you to do this and I want you to do that. And I was like, well, I don't want to.
Yeah.
As soon as you have people paying you money, you have to do as you're told. So if it's the government paying you money, you have to follow the government line. If it's particularly big companies or sponsors, investors, you have to do as you're told.
Yeah.
Because that's how you exist. So the Sun, for example, of being very pro-jab, I know that they only make money from commuters. So they need to get, after lockdown, they lost a lot of money, really suffering. The Sun newspaper make money from people going to work and coming home from work, picking up the newspaper. So they need to get people back into work. That's how they make money. So they might have a different agenda on the jab, get people jab back to work.
Yeah. It's a shame a lot of things literally do just fall down to money and how much more you can get because of something. But why do you think it is that the public are becoming more aware to not being able to trust these big journalism outlets?
Because they've seen the protests, for example. I mean, I've been to a couple of them and they were called anti-vaxxers and they weren't. Within half an hour, I interviewed a professor from Imperial College London, a history teacher of 32 years, a retired midwife and a vicar's wife, and someone who works at the BBC in half an hour. And they're just being called anti-vaxxers. And if they even turn up, that's one of the main reasons. These massive protests, they're not, I was at least 50, 100,000, 200,000 people we've had at those protests. And Richard Tice went up in a helicopter and we got a shot of how big the protests were. And all you hear from Sky and the Mail and the BBC, if they cover it, is you get bits and pieces, but generally the feeling is that these people are a nuisance and they're anti-vaxxers. And that's just not the case. They're scared about vaccine passports. And they don't believe that children should be vaccinated. So I think they just have to, and they have, it's clear, isn't it? They have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram now to hear from people. They don't need or rely upon those media organizations in the same way they used to.
Yeah, and TikTok, obviously that's another big one. I get a lot of people from TikTok for my stories. Just scrolling it like, oh, that's good. But you speak obviously very openly on like Twitter and your on like podcasts and things about the mistrust with organizations. Have you ever had kind of any backlash or been contacted from any organization from what you've said?
No. Oh. No. I've had my eye on BBC Panorama for a while. But they know I've got stuff on them. So I've got a good little few insurance policies. A Guardian reporter. I don't think the Guardian will be bothering me. I've behaved, I think, as an old school newspaper editor would have done, where you have protect yourself, your reputation. The Guardian tried to do a smear piece on me when I interviewed two politicians on my YouTube channel. They didn't like that because it was a very, very popular recording. It's like, she can't interview politicians. Yeah. She can't have any influence on where this is going. It's just down to West Telegraph or the Mail or the Guardian. Yeah. That they didn't like that, and there was a bit of a smear piece from the Guardian, but that was ages ago, and there's been nothing else. But I am very, very aware that there's some fantastic journalists trying to do their best, but they get blocked. Yeah, lots of freelance health reporters who try to get stories out there, staff journalists as well. I'm in a journalism group. I talk to these people, former Daily Mail executives, Sally Beck, who was a mainstream media journalist for many years. She was a staff Mirror journalist and then became freelance. I'm in touch with them all now. They are great people. There's some fantastic journalists still in these organizations. But there comes a time when you actually have to say, we need to walk out now. We need to get together as a collective and walk out. It's a shame the NEJ aren't helping with that, but you need to walk out. This isn't on. You're not listening to the people. You're not providing debate. You're not listening to the suffering of the people, and you're failing democracy. You're failing our future. Our children are at risk because we are losing trust and we are losing democracy. and you have to take action now, I would say to journalists.
Yeah, I was going to say, how would you want these organisations to change, or sorry, to gain more trust by us? What do you think could be done? Or is it too far gone for yourself?
Yeah, I don't know if it's too far gone. I can't answer that. Only the public.
Yeah.
The public will decide. You know, we all still share in shock, though. We might read an article and think, I don't agree with that, or but as soon as you share it, you give them power to it.
Yeah.
Still, you know, if you still buy it. My mum and dad can't stand the mail, but they buy it every day.
Yeah, my granddad does. He likes a newspaper.
And I am on TikTok, just for my family and friends, and I like to do stupid videos on TikTok. I laugh. I make up songs, but it can get all a bit depressing. The stuff that I put onto it is like, it's a bit intense and depressing. We've got to remember to have fun. Life is beautiful.
Balance.
Life is beautiful.
Sometimes.
Life is crazy. I tell you what, let's play the long game here, yeah? Let's hope that other journalism students get some inspiration from you, from listening to this, and remember that there's time, and time is needed. It's not going to happen overnight. Time is needed to change these institutions. So yeah, I say journalists walk out, do something. But yeah, you know, even gradually we can bring in new media organizations, but they need a lot of investment and a lot of time. And the future's exciting as long as we put the right values and principles first, which I think are trust, democracy, and our children. If we put money, materialism, selfishness first, then I don't think the future's looking so bright.
I was just going to ask actually if you had any like one main piece of advice. Obviously, like I said, I'm graduating and next year. What's like one main piece of advice that you'd give maybe me or my colleagues for graduating, getting into the industry?
Well, think about why you want to be a journalist, and be very careful that it's not because, well, I know a lot of people had low self-esteem. I did, low self-worth. Are you going into journalism to hold power to account, to expose corruption, to make sure these big corporations and governments can't just get away with whatever they want without being fully investigated? So I would say the best piece of advice is remember why you went into the career, what your values and principles are, and hold on to those dearly. And if you see something that's wrong and not right, stand up.
Yeah.
But we are living in a different world now where you do have the opportunity. You can't contain the truth. You know, you can't have these gatekeepers of the narrative anymore, because you've got whistleblowers with mobile phones and social media, and the truth will get out there.
Yeah.
So it's just being true to yourself. You have to be a team player as well, and you may see some things in an environment at work that you don't agree with. You know, we all make mistakes. Days and life can be challenging, but on the whole, if you're working together under that collective of the same values and principles, and focusing on those, even if you make mistakes, things go wrong, forgive each other, you know, learn and grow and develop and evolve. But the media of the future is exciting as long as we, like I said, don't focus on selfishness and materialism and money.
Yeah, it's not the be all and end all. Was there anything else you wanted to add that we may have missed at all?
No, this has felt a bit like a therapy session. I'm tired.
Getting it all out.
Yeah, listen, I've really enjoyed that, and I'd love to publish it. Can I just, do you mind me asking you just a little bit more details about where you're studying and your name?
Yeah,
I know you're 20.
Yeah, so I'm 20.
In case I publish this as well, we need to know who you are.
Yeah, I'm at Birmingham City University. And my name's Amy Delaunay.
Good luck, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for talking to me.
It's a pleasure. It's the kind of interviews I really enjoy.
Yeah. I'll send it to you. Shall I email you it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, cool. Thank you
so
much. You too. Enjoy the rest of your day.